campaign terrain. This is week 3 of the 4-week build of the Hovel house. As you can see, in this week we complete the house and it's ready for landscaping for next week. So we will take it from where we left off last week. We'll get all of this wood trim put on it, and we'll get the top of the chimneys put on, and we'll get it a little bit weathered and aged so it looks like it's been lived in for a while. So that's what we're doing today on week 3. See you in just a minute. Alright, we're going to jump right in here. We're going to go ahead and show you the dry brushing. That's just to show a little of the texture here on the sides of the walls. I don't know if you can see it here, but this side is really bland and solid, and this side you can see the grit and the sandiness of it. So this is the texture we're going for, so that the houses stand out a little. I've done 2 of the sides, but not the other 2. Same deal as last time. Take the brush, little paint on it, brush off a lot of it, and then just lightly across it just so it picks up the top of that texture. You don't want this to be a paint job, you just want this to pick out. If you haven't done here yet, you just want it to pick out the texture. You can go any direction you want on this. You can give it as much or as little as you want. I really want to accentuate it, so I'm going to kind of go from all directions here. I'm going to finish up this 4th wall, and I'll be right back to show you how we're going to do the windows and shutters. While the house is drying, which should just take a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and show you very quickly about the windows. They're made essentially like I made the doors in my door video. All I did is I took some of the skinnier sticks, these are the ones that look like a matchstick, glued those down, and then cut the coffee stirrers at a 1/2 inch right here to make the 2 shingles. I glued those down, then I glued the side frames in, and then I glued the top frame in. So bottom, shutters, side, and top. And it makes, once they're done, you can cut them out into these little squares and they look just like this. These are all backed on card. These are all done with food packaging or similar, and now I can just take them and glue them straight on. Now these have been stained, these haven't, but you can do it in any order you want. You can paint these, you can paint the shutters different than a frame, however you want. So these are done just like the doors in my door video. So now, once this is dry, we're gonna go ahead and glue them on, and they're gonna come out looking like this once they're on. So give me just a few minutes to let this finish up drying, and then I'll come back and show you that. We're gonna put the trim board under the roof, then that's front and rear. Then we're going to trim the side pieces to fit. They're going to fit like this, but you can see they're bumping into the roof right here, so we're going to use the front and rear trim pieces to measure where those go and cut those to fit. So we're going to attach these trim boards all the way around. Once those are attached, then we'll be attaching the doors and windows all the way around. Then we'll be attaching the fascia board, that's the edge trim on the roof, all the way around. Then we'll be putting on the chimney. Remember, it's got the part we didn't paint, so we know which way that's going. You just arbitrarily pick which one's going to be the side, but this is always going to be the side of the house. You can pick whichever one is the front or rear based on that. I'm doing one that's opposite my prototype, so just to keep it simple, all of my doors on this are based on the fireplace being on this side here. So trim boards, doors and windows, fascia. Don't do that. Then the chimney, and last the chimney pieces, and that'll be all of the assembly. Then we just come back and put some darker wash on it to make the building look a little older, and we're done. So I'm going to go through that really quick. You can use whichever glue you want. Again, I'm using hot glue, I just find it easier. When you attach these, you want this trim board to stick out just a little bit at this edge on what will be the 2 sides of the house. That's the chimney side and the non-chimney side. You want that board to stick out just a little so that when we put the boards on the sides, they fit between those. So I'm going to go ahead and attach it just like this. Give me just a second. This is really quick. Okay, that's the front. I've said this before, but I always use the gun on low temp so it cools faster and I don't burn myself as bad, that sort of thing. It's good for most of these things. So right now I'm using this is a dual temp gun, dual temp glue, but I'm using it on the lower temp. Okay, go ahead and attach that with a little bit of overhang over here. I'm going to let that cool off for a minute, and then I'll be back to trim that and put on the side pieces. The front and rear have cooled off. I've trimmed one of them off. You can see I left it standing a little bit. Proud of that, so that other board fits between. I'm going to do the same thing over here. You can use a knife, you can use nippers like these, you can use a pair of scissors, whatever works for you, but I just take the nippers and good to go. Trim off the little Sharpie bits, I don't really need those. And all these pieces like this, save those. Those can be used as shingles for other houses, that sort of thing. Alright, now for the ends. The ends are just as easy. You want to take the board, fit it between the one, make a mark. I'm going to take this and make a straight line of glue. There we go. Now there may or may not be some seepage. On this one there is. So I'm going to let this cool off. I'm going to trim off, use the tip of a craft knife. I'll probably use this one. And get rid of that extra glue. I'm also going to do the other side and I'll be right back. Corner trim time. I've done 3 corners of this. Let me show you how this is done on the other one. You want to start on the side, run your bead of glue right along the edge. Probably did that a little heavily, but that's alright. You want to take that and line it up with the front or rear of the house, depending on which part you're doing. But you want to put the side one and you want to line it right up with that front edge. Take off any excess glue. Take your nippers, scissors, whichever. Trim that right at the bottom of the house. Okay, that's going to leave you a little groove right here. You do want this one to sit over that other one so that they meet up on the side like this. You don't want a gap in it. So take the glue, run it down this side, basically in that groove. Again, don't go too heavy. And take your last one, place it on there and line it up with the edge. Roll off any excess glue that seeps out. It's going to end up looking like that. And trim that off right at the bottom. You want to catch these. The nippers will try to shoot these across the room, so keep your hands on those. And again, you can put them off to the side. You can use those as shutters or whichever later. If there's anything messed up, you can trim that up. All this is going to disappear into foliage and things in the 4th week build, so just you want the bottom close, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so that's all of the sides, all of the corners, excuse me. So we're going to jump straight into the door. Now, remember I told you there's a front and a rear door. So we're going to take the front door, that's the one with the thicker piece. This is just like the one I built in the demo video. Now, when these are all said and done, these are going to have a front porch or a front stoop sitting like that. So we want to take a piece of this, that's going to be in week 4, but we want to take a piece of this foam core and use that as a measurement for where the bottom of the door goes. Now I'm just going to eyeball it because I've done this several times already. Now we want the front door centered in the building. I put a mark on the bottom and the bottom. Now remember, I want to leave that much clearance. Line up that mark, leave the gap, press on, and squeeze from inside, pinch and hold. Now you need all this trim on here so we can see where the windows go. So that's why I went ahead and did the trim before I put on the doors, and we'll put on the fascia after. Fascia is a fancy word for board that hangs down. So this is going to have a fascia board, which means face. So we're going to face these with another board in just a moment. But let's go ahead and get these lined up. Now, remember, you don't want your windows down by people's knees, and you don't want them over their heads. So we're going to use the top of the window frame, aligned with the top of the door, which is the bottom of the door frame. So we're going to put that at that height, and we're just going to center it between the door and the corner trim. So this piece is going to go just like that. Now, remember, you definitely want your shutters to go up and down. Don't accidentally put them like this. Ask me how I know. I have definitely done them wrong before. So you definitely want your shutters upright, centered, and aligned with the top of the door. And it's that simple. Now, this is the front. On the back, we're going opposite this one, so I'm going to put the door on this side, again, leaving room. I'm going to put it all the way against this edge. Now this is to go out to like the wood pile, or if they've got an allotment out back with crops, things like that. So we want that just like that, all the way to the edge. Leave the gap for the porch. Press, hold, good to go. Now, again, we're going to line the windows up the same height. Top of the window goes to the bottom of the door frame. So we want the window at this height, and you can just center those whichever way you want. I'm just going to eyeball those and put the first one about here and the second one about here. Now for the end of the house away from the chimney gets no windows. On the house, on this end away, we're just going to take those and sort of balance them where they look like they should fit. Again, keeping the shutters upright, and we're going to make sure to align those shutters at the same elevation when we put them on over here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the last 5 windows put on, and then I'll be back to show you about the fascia. Okay, another teaching experience, by which I mean I messed up. You notice that I put windows on the chimney end. I had to peel them off, stick them to the other side, and now I'm going to have to deal with the chimney. This paint's drying. I'm going to have to fix it and touch it up. That'll be ready for episode 4 next week. But this is the prototype house we've been working on. So for the fascia, I'm going to switch to prototype 2 rather than 3, and get to that and get on with showing you the fascia board and how we do those. Alright, so fascia boards are going to take 4 boards, 2 of which I've cut in half. It just makes it a little easier and a little faster to get moving. So we want to take those, and on the end where the chimney is not, these are going to attach like this, and you notice that you're going to have a spot in the middle where the angle matches up. Well, the easy way to do that is not at the top. Take that piece that you want to cut off, and on the end, line it right up at the middle, and on the end opposite, that's when you want to take your nippers and line them up parallel with the vertical wall. Save all your little pieces for crafting for later. You can use them for rubble or whichever. Okay, so now we've got the angle for all 4 of the center lines. So you want to take the other 3 that you've already cut and use that same line to nip those off. So you should end up with 4 identical boards just like this. Again, just to be sure, the one you cut second, you want to put off to the side. Keep cutting from the original same one. Now since we've stained both sides of these, it doesn't matter which way you cut it. Now you've got 4 of those. Well, that's pretty straightforward at this point. You just want to glue those on here, so I'm going to go ahead and put on one of those. You really don't want to use too much glue here. Again, I'm on the low temp. If you're on the high temp, be very, very careful. You can melt the edge of your roof, so don't do that. And then I take them and I start them from the top edge and sort of fold them down toward the house. And you want to make sure this top edge right here is lined up along this edge here, so that it runs smooth with the roof. You can do that also by putting it down and pressing it on. You just want this line and this line lined up with each other. Now that's going to leave you 4 boards when you're done on these edges. Now on these, you can, if you really want to, trim those off vertically and put the fascia boards on vertical with the ground, which is going to leave a small gap underneath right down in there. I don't do that. I just put them where I can use the entire surface of the roof to glue the board to. That gives it a better bit of grip, and overall the look, there's nothing wrong with the look. Now you want this fascia board, the long one, the front and rear of the house, to be the ones that cross over the other one. So take the one you already put on, line that up, On the other end, ignore the fact that I had to yank a chimney off because I've got some other things to demonstrate in just a minute. But where that chimney is going to line up on that's where you want this board to start. So you want to start from here, not all the way up at the roof line. You want to start from the edge of the chimney. Place the chimney in place so you can get a good grip, get it solid against there so you know exactly where to put it. Sometimes there's a little bit of a gap or an overhang right here. Same thing, line it up with the roof, start at the roof line, kind of fold down till it's parallel, and then you are good to go. Take that, trim it off with the roof. And then, same thing on the roof line. All the way across the front or rear. Line the board up with the edge of the house and the top edge of the roof line, and sort of fold it down and press it into place. So that's the whole front side of the house done. I'm going to do the back of the house, and then I'll come back to show you how to trim the chimney around this board right here. Got the fascia attached all the way around, starting to look like a completed house. Now we're going to take the chimney, in this case reattach it, but generally attach it. Line it up where it's going to go. And if you can see, that board is pushing this out from the wall. So what I've done is I took a marker and I made a tiny mark at the top and bottom of the board on both sides. I'm going to take a small knife, connect those two lines so I'll know where I'm cutting. I want to cut in the thickness of one of these boards, so it's like a 1/16 of an inch or so. I want to cut down into the chimney, or technically horizontally in the chimney, just deep enough for the board so we don't end up with a big gap. Including on the side so we don't have a bunch of chip out. So, just like that. And like that. Then we're going to take this and at a slight angle we want to cut under to meet that cut we just made. Take out that strip. Same on the other side. And gently and delicately cut or pick the rest of this out of the middle. Then we test fit. Looks like this one's gonna have this one piece getting away here, so let me go ahead and pick that out. Okay. As you can see, that now fits more flush in here. It's hard to see because this is that one I didn't paint very well from last week, but as you can see, it now goes around that board. If you didn't mess up and have to pry one off like I did and I already have it marked out like this for you, you can just go ahead and put a couple of marks on the side of the chimney where you can tell where exactly to put the glue to. Make sure you got that line, that groove we just cut, go in the correct direction. Turn it inside out, press down against the chimney so that you get all that glue. Get way up into the gable, that's that very top of the house. Get way up in there and press so we catch all of the chimney attached to it. Alright, now this one I will be attaching windows to by next week. The one I messed up already has windows but no chimney, so I'm going to be working on both of these. These should both be done by next week when I get to the landscaping. So this is essentially ready to go. Now, you can, if you want, fill this in or paint in here. That'll probably be touched up by next week. I don't know exactly what I'm doing with that, but something in here will make this a little bit better. Okay, so one last thing and then the house is finished being built, and then we can get on to the color wash so that it looks like it's been aged and lived in. Remember, this is the piece that goes around the chimney caps and sits on top. That finishes off the top of the chimney. Remember, we made a little mark on here, so you want that piece to be down. Don't forget to get the sides. I'll leave these two holes. Now, if you wanted, you don't have to mess with these pieces at all. You could just paint down in here with black or really dark brown or dark gray just to hide that and leave it like the chimney looking like this, but I'm going to go ahead and attach chimney caps. Now, when I made these, I took into account the height was going to have these pieces that are messed up. So what I'm going to do here is take a pair of scissors, nip those off to where the chimney cap is just about twice the height of the capper stone here at the top. I'll take that, trim that off. Hopefully it'll go. They do not have to be exactly the same height. You can if you want, but I'm just going to eyeball it here, get rid of the part that's not painted. Now, this white edge where it's not painted, I'm going to make sure to put that down. So, little dab of glue in there, kind of smear that around to the corners and sides. Cut that one a little short while the glue's still warm and sort of edge it out. And as you can see, those chimney caps are done. Now they do sometimes have a bit of a color in here. If you want, you can go back in after and drip some paint in there. I don't know if I'm going to bother doing that or not. Like I said, I'm working on 20 of these houses. So there you go. That's essentially a completed house. This doesn't have windows, but it's got all the doors, all the fascia trim, the correctly attached chimney, and the chimney cap. And I've dry brushed the walls and the roof. So now there's one last thing to do, and that is come along with a wash and stain the walls so that they look older and more lived in. I'm going to go ahead and let some of these things dry and let the hot glue cool, let some of the paint dry, and I'll come back and show you how that works on this house that's already got the windows installed. Let me get a fascia board on the front and then I'll do the rest. Before we actually get to the washing, I've got a quick interim step. You do not have to do this. I happen to think it makes them look nicer, and it is a more traditional style, and I put a ridge cap on the top of the roof. You do not have to do this, but it generally implies that this is going to be a more waterproof roof. It'll keep rain from getting into potentially into this crack, things like that. You do not have to do this. It is purely optional, but I like to do it just for the way it looks. So same as the others, simple trick, a simple bead of glue down the top. So we've got this one completed except for the windows. We've got this one completed except for attaching the chimney after I finish repainting that. So what I'm going to do is this one, it's already got the windows on it. I'm going to go ahead and show you on that one, even though I haven't finished it. I'm just going to show you on the back how I use the wash. Now, I make my own washes. You can buy them however you want. There are other people that have videos on how to make them. I may do that one of these days, but for right now, I've got a brown wash, I've got a green wash, I've got a gray wash, I've got a black wash. Essentially, you want something dark and that's a dark color, and you want something that's fairly translucent, so you want to mix it with enough of whatever medium you use. Ooh, bubbles. Bubbles are generally bad, but we're going to be dabbing this off, so that's not going to be too much of an issue. So, the trick is you want this wherever rainwater would gather over the years. So top of the windows, top of the door frame, down the corner edges, up into the corners. And you want to get this to where it's really liquidy. I don't know if you can see that, but it's actually running down into the crevices. And you really do want to just wash it. You want it to come down as if this is the rainwater hitting the house. Door, window frame, sills, all of that. Now, as you can see, it's starting to collect a little. That's because I've got too many bubbles in this. I probably didn't let it sit enough after I shook it. But we're going to sort of blot this off after. We're not going for a paint job. We're not going for having dripped paint on the house. We're just going for where dirt would have gathered into all the corners. And that's it. You can see that it's changed the look of it. Once it dries, it'll dry more opaque, transparent and translucent. You won't be able to really see that through it. It just ages the house up and makes it look less new and more, it makes it look more lived in. I don't want to get that roof, I haven't put that roof line on yet. So take the wash, Now, let me show you what it looks like once it's dry, because both these houses are still wet. Once it's dried, it's going to look like this. You can see I've got streaks under the windows. I've got a little bit of darkness above the windows here. This is the back of the house, so I've got some up in the top. I made this one look darker on the back because you go in and out of the house, back of the house less. The sides, same thing. No door, you don't really notice them. But the front, this is where everybody comes in all the time. There's spatter. There, people sit things next to the house. There's gonna, when I finish these, there's gonna be little hedges here. All of these account for dirt and grit and grime on the house. So once it's dry, you can see in all the corners and nooks and crannies where that wash has gotten into. So on a completed house, it ends up looking really good. Now this one's got a gray wash. I will probably go back and do that on these brown houses. But that is it. We are done. I hope you've been appreciating these. And if you have, click like, share, and subscribe. Let all your friends know. And come back and we'll see you next week. And we'll start to put these houses onto a little foundation that fits up inside them. That's going to have a matching chimney for the inside. And essentially it's just going to be an open square. I'm going to texture the floor a bit so that it makes it playable. So when you lift off the house, there's a floor underneath so that it'll sit right on there. And I'll also do a little bit of landscaping around it. So each house is going to have its own little platform. So come back and join us for that next week. And I thank you for coming to Campaign Terrain, and we will see you next time. The house is complete. Next week, we'll be adding some landscape, make it look a little better than it does here. I've added a few touches here. So if you're building one house and that's all you need, you're done. If you want it to look a little bit better and have a little platform to sit on and some decoration around it, join us next week. In the meantime, you got one house, or if you're like me, you're well on your way towards creating an entire village. Thanks for coming to Campaign Terrain. My name is your host, Cross. I love you, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much.